Well, hello, good people. My name is Mark Holmes, and as always, I appreciate each and every one of you guys. If you've been a follower of my channel or any of my channels, actually, you know that I have been a general contractor. I am a cabinet maker. I'm a jack of all trades, and I'm definitely a lover of history. And I'm also a landlord. I have been doing real estate rentals basically since 2008 when the stock market crashed with the real estate market. At that time, I was really a flipper, and I got started in it by accident. I've always been in construction since I was a teenager, working on my parents' house. They ended up putting on an addition to the house. My uncle was a brick mason and carpenter, and at about 11 years old I started working with him. My dad had an old Shopsmith machine, Mark II, which we still have, and I started making things. And it's kind of interesting to me, at least, that some of the things that I made literally 45 years ago, my mom still uses. And so I've learned to build things for longevity wise. If you're in my house, and my table that's in the kitchen, I built like 23 years ago. I've got a bench that's in front of the red brick house that I built for my kids that are in their mid-30s now. That's on the front porch. So I love permanence when I build. Being a landlord, it's not necessarily for everybody. But being a landlord, we have actually 10 units. Some of them are single units. Some of them are duplexes. But there's still 10 units that we maintain. And most of them are either ones that I built from the ground up, or places that were places nobody else wanted and gutted them out and rebuilt them. How I got started in it was, originally I was flipping. I was buying houses that were literally abandoned that nobody else wanted. You know, maybe nobody's lived in them for 10, 15 years, and they were just dirt cheap in the small town of Waynesboro, Virginia. The cheapest house I actually bought, believe it or not, was for $17,000. And it was a small 600 square foot house. It had already been gutted out. We ended up putting in an electric panel and new plumbing and everything else, and we still own this house as a rental property today. Now, the problem for a lot of people who become landlords, if you're not a jack of all trade like I am, is the cost of maintaining it, the cost of bringing them up to code, which can be rather expensive, and maintenance costs. For me, what I've always done is, when I get an old house, I gut it out, rebuild it, put in new wiring, electrical, plumbing, and HVAC, so that way we're starting with a good basis. And that has been very, very good for what I do. I don't get that many calls. I probably get 1 or 2 calls a month with the 10 units, which is pretty good considering the last new rental property that I built was 2008. The last one that we acquired was probably 4 years ago, and to have those few problems has been good. That's not to say that we don't still have to have maintenance and things done. And again, if you are trying to decide if you want to be a landlord, well, there's a lack of affordable housing. There is a lack of people being able to buy. If you start thinking about 10 to 20% down payment, you know, not that many people necessarily have. You know, if you're buying a $200,000 house, which it's not easy even finding $200,000 houses, have $40,000 to put down, and they're electing, of course, to be a renter. So this is where there's an advantage for you being a landlord, of you having somebody else paying your mortgage. You're getting the tax breaks on the interest and so on. Now, the problem, of course, is the maintaining and the cost associated with it. I have a friend who has at the time, seemed like a great investment. Had a brother who lived in Florida, and they bought a couple of houses that they had as rental properties. Well, the brother's health was not good, and he wasn't able to take care of it. He's in Virginia, and having to deal with going to Florida to maintain the properties becomes cost prohibitive. And the real estate market in Florida, because of the insurance going through the roof and the exodus that's going on, they've had vacancies for 6 months, which is definitely a killer. So that's one of the perils that you have. Maintenance costs, if you are not a jack of all trades. I was talking to a friend of mine who actually has a trailer, a RV trailer that he actually lives in. His AC stopped working Tuesday night. He called actually a repairman, and the repairman came out and said, first of all, it's $175 for me to show up, and then it's $75 an hour after that. Well, he came in, he checked the unit upstairs and so on, and because it's an RV, when they have problems, they basically have to replace it. He came down, he checked the thermostat, it was a loose wire. The guy was there for 20 minutes, $300 bill. Boom. And that's fortunate that there was nothing major wrong with it, because had it been something else, he would have had to replace it, potentially spending, $1,000 or more dollars. For me, as we speak right now, I'm actually driving down the road because I do have a sewer backup at the house. Now, I live about 150 miles away, so I am having to make that drive down, and I will rent the snake. That'll cost me $75, and I'll spend about an hour or so snaking it out. So I'm spending my gas money and a couple hours, and I'm getting it done. No big deal. No big deal for me. But I have been in situations where I wasn't able to go. And here becomes the problem. Calling Roto-Rooter or any plumbing company to get them there. Problem number one, them actually being able to show up in a reasonable time to take care of the problem. Problem number two, the cost. You can expect to spend a minimum $500 to get the snake drained. Just is. And this is one of those problems this is one of those things that, for no rhyme or reason, things like this do happen. And you either have to have a maintenance agreement contract with a company that can take care of it if you can't, or you have to be a jack of all trades that can. Other things that can really destroy your budget is this past fall, we needed a new roof on one of the properties. I'm getting older, don't like doing roofs and things. Got a couple of estimates that ranged anywhere from $10,000 to $18,000 to do it, and most of them weren't any time frame that was even close. The lower estimate that I had, which was a great price, was 6 months wait time. Fortunately, again, because I am a jack of all trades, I got a helper, and we ended up doing the roof. Between paying my laborer and buying the materials, $5,000. Still a big chunk of change, but a lot better than 10 or 18,000. So those are some of the problems and issues that will come up. This wasn't actually one of my rental properties, but this was a person that was in need. They ended up having an air conditioning issue where the HVAC guy came out and said, you need an electrician. And I happened to be coming down to town, looked at it, found out there's a Federal Pacific box. And if you want to see what it takes to replace one of those, there's a video out there where we ended up replacing it. We had to get the power company to pull the meter because you're replacing all the service that's inside the house. Again, they had called to try and get somebody to take care of it in the meantime. And unfortunately, without having the HAC, because this Federal Pacific box literally is a death trap. They stopped making them in the 80s, and they are a fire hazard, that the breakers were literally melting inside of them. The breaker for the air conditioning basically had melted, so there's no power to that. You can't get the breakers for it, so it had to be a service upgrade. To get somebody to come out to even give an estimate was 8-day lead time. 8 days for them to just come out and tell you how much it's going to cost. Yeah, and this is during a heat wave. The typical cost to replace that is anywhere from $2,000 to $4,000. Again, one of those issues that I try and avoid by upgrading the things when I get my rental properties. Fortunately, the service, it took me 3 hours time to change it, and about $500 in materials. So you can see the difference is huge between being a jack of all trades and being able to do the work yourself versus having to pay and wait for somebody else to come in. Right now, with all that's going on as far as construction industry and so on, there's a lack of skilled people. There's a lack of skilled people who can actually do the work, and there's a shortage of companies that have time. So again, if you've got a situation where you don't have a panel for a week, what do? Well, you may have to compensate your tenants, putting them up in a hotel or something. So yes, it's not necessarily easy to be a landlord, but it's not the hardest thing in the world if you have skills. So that's at least me sharing with you guys what I deal with as a landlord. Another pitfall, of course, is having good tenants. And the great thing is I have my wife, who's my partner, who is the one that takes care of doing the leases and the background checks and so on, because you don't want to get a bad tenant. A bad tenant can really trash a place, and with some of the laws, getting a bad tenant out or a squatter can be difficult, and you want to make sure from the beginning that you're not renting to somebody who should not be. You know, the red flags of I've got bad credit, or I don't have references, or I need a place like today. There's probably a backstory on reasons why they're in the situation that they're in. So always try and protect yourself, because when you have a duplex situation, if you have a bad tenant, it affects the people next door as well. So any questions that you may have on my experiences of being a landlord now for going on 20 years, or in construction, by all means, leave a comment here, and I will do my best to go ahead and respond to you guys with what I've seen. Have a great day.